my own first experiences with DNM came at the Anatomy Trains summer school in February 2020. It was the second time they'd run that in Perth. Tom Myers was there presenting a course on the foundations of movement and another one on breathing that I wanted to attend. So I thought, well, while I'm there, I'll sign up for this other course presented by Michael Pollon and entitled A Neurofascial Approach to Lower Back Pain. I thought, gee, that sounds pretty theory heavy, and it was. The first day was pretty much solid theory. We sat there and he talked through a whole lot of pain science and neuroscience and neuroanatomy, and none of it was particularly new to me. I hadn't read the specific studies, but it was all part of how I understood the body worked. And as he got further through it, I thought, gee, if this actually works the way you say it works, this is going to be bloody life-changing. So the end of the second day, when we got to a bit of practical, I was sitting there working on someone's leg, having had a good feel around and picking all this tightness in the top of rec fem and thinking, oh, well, I don't think this cutaneous nerve work's going to fix that, but I've got some ideas. And so took some gentle traction along this leg, and the guy lying on the table said, yep, that feels like enough. And I thought, that doesn't feel like enough to do anything, but we'll give it a go. And we sat there for a few minutes. I felt some releases happen through the side of his leg. He felt things happening as well. And I thought, okay, well, let's go and fix that big bit of tightness now, and had another feel around, and it just wasn't there. I sat down looking mildly stunned. Michael came over, and I said, this is incredible. Not long after I got home, we went into lockdown, and the day before lockdown was my wife's birthday. I was supposed to be making bacon and eggs for her birthday, and I managed to pour hot oil up my forearm. Man, I was in the shower in about 5 seconds flat, I can tell you, in my dressing gown. So my first couple of weeks in lockdown was managing a grade 2 burn. And something that I found was that if I took a little bit of traction just around the inside of my elbow, where you've got the medial cutaneous nerve of the forearm splitting into its anterior and posterior branch, all of the awful burny pain through my whole forearm would disappear. It was gone. I couldn't feel a thing. So that was really useful. I would sit there a fair portion of the day with that gentle bit of skin traction on there, just avoiding that awful sensation. Really useful way to get to sleep. As long as you can keep that skin traction on there enough to get sleepy enough, it doesn't matter if your finger slips off. The third experience was working on the lateral femoral cutaneous nerve down the outside of my thigh, and I knew I had a bit of bunged up stuff going on there with a large patch of numbness that had happened after this kid kneed me in the side of the thigh in sixth form at school. So I would sit there in the evenings doing a bit of work on the outside of my leg, and one particular night I got all these twitchy responses happening out of vastus lateralis. I thought, wow, that's interesting. So the next morning I got up and thought, before I do anything else, I'm going to do a bit more work on there. So I sat down and found the same little spot up my leg, settled into that, got a bit of traction on there, and about 5 minutes in, I got this growing sense of my leg, and just feeling my whole leg, everything from my toes right up to my hip, and it all felt nice. And I thought, man, that's kind of interesting. I don't think I've ever felt that before. And I stood up, and my whole hip felt loose, and my whole back on that side felt loose. I thought, wow, that feels really different. Got down on the ground and did a kneeling hip flexor stretch, and I cried. It was no tighter than the other side, and I was so used to there being just this awful tightness there consistently. So that was a bit of a revelation to me, and I posted in the DNM Facebook group saying, what? How has it had that profound an effect? Where Diane Jacobs and a couple other people responded and said, yep, this is descending inhibition. So one of the important things that cutaneous nerve work does is talk nicely to parts of the brain that limit the spinal cord withdrawal reflex, sending good signals and good chemicals down the spinal cord to stop the spinal cord getting carried away. And if there's a lack of sensory input, then your mapping in your brain isn't great, and the brain doesn't necessarily know how to limit all of that stuff. So changes in the sensory portion of the nervous system can be a huge part of rigidity and stiffness in the muscular system due to that motor output. So that change with the whole leg loosening off didn't last forever. It's certainly a lot tighter again now, and I do a bit of work on it, and it loosens off quite a bit, and every time there's a bit more improvement. the thing that really fascinated me was just how much more functional my leg and especially my foot was. And this, in a large part, was due to that proper inhibition of the spinal cord withdrawal reflex with that descending inhibition. I'd been to see a few people with this, and you go to the physio, and you get lunges onto a Bosu ball and single leg squats and stuff like that, and it never really felt like that was the right thing. I always had the sense something else was going on, because those movements just didn't feel right, and they never seemed to improve. And I realised that, if I'd really battled on through it, I probably could have built enough strength in all those muscles to be able to do all of the things. But how much compensation would I have needed for that? How many extra layers of the onion would I be putting on there to build those abilities in the nervous system? And I'm really not particularly interested in being more uneven. I want to become more even, front to back, side to side. And so if I can do that by achieving changes in how the sensory side of the nervous system is reporting things, then that will make a whole lot of things a whole lot easier. And I've seen it. You do some cutaneous nerve work and then ask someone to try their little physio exercise again and get a startled look, because it's so much easier. So it's right. Go away and do that now. That's the thing that's actually going to help now, because whatever was in the way, blocking that nervous system feedback loop, isn't there anymore.